My hat! Alright, so here I have the steering now, so we're about to build this up. And for the steering, you're going to need this piece. Now this piece, it's going to sit right in here, and remember these things key to that top plate. And you're going to need a variety, well, you're going to need all of these components here. But the first thing, you're going to take this and you're going to drop this in. And one thing I don't have in here is the bearing. So I should actually put this bearing in here. So I'm going to put the bearing in here. And now you're going to need this as well. Now this is what I need to place in here. So if you notice, this is going to be round and then this is going to be flat. And this, see that flat area there? It's just going to key in here. Right in there. You need to make sure this is tight on here, because once you're threading the nuts, if this isn't tight, you're going to damage them, and then this is just going to spin infinitely. But here we go. So now we're going to grab this. This will go here. So this will face forward because these links are going to screw on to this end. Now, once this is here, again, I just mentioned about the bearing. I forgot to place the bearing. There's the bearing. All right, bearing is there. Now this can fit in there, and you're good to go. Don't forget to lube that bearing up a bit. Once you have this, you're going to have this here, and this is your Servo Saver. Now this side will wipe off, but it'll be fine. And you can see these little flat sides. Those, you will just see how they sit in there. So this is going to go this way. And you just drop this in place, and if you were to rotate this, you would see that it comes up and off. That's the way the Servo Saver works. So the spring will just hold it. These are, say, two little cups, and it just makes it fall back in place so that it steers properly every time. That's how your Servo Saver works. If this is, I mean, again, the assumption here when I'm doing this build is you either just got one used, maybe it was somebody gave you one, you bought one, or this is the first time you're working on one, or a Servo Saver. Most Servo Savers work the same way, very similar. So once you understand the concept for one, you'll understand the concept for most. I'm not going to say all, because Traxxas, for example, does have that white little Servo Saver that goes on many of their two-wheel drive vehicles, where the spring is in the servo horn rather than the bell crank. Now, once you have this, you're going to take one of these nuts, and the first one's going to face toward the spring. So that little cup area, that's going to go toward the spring. This is the one that's going to control the tension of the Servo Saver. The less tension, the more your front wheels are going to be able to turn left or right without your servo making them turn based on terrain. So if they hit a rock, they'll be more likely to kind of go in a different direction. So your servo could be wanting to go left, but your tires could be pointing right if it's too loose. And that's an issue. Now, if it's too tight, then the whole purpose of the Servo Saver could be defeated to a good point, and you could damage the servo horn. In this case, it's a plastic one, or you could damage the servo. Although metal gear servos tend to be a lot stronger than plastic gear servos. If you had plastic gear servos, for example, Traxxas has the 2075 servo, which is a blue servo that's very common on many of their vehicles. Those are plastic gear. If you do not have a Servo Saver, you will break those. I mean, they're good servos for what they are, just keep the Servo Saver. And the reason why I mentioned that Traxxas part is because that's one of the parts that I'm used to. If I were used to working with maybe Losi, for example, I would have mentioned their part, but Traxxas is the brand I work with the most. That's the reason why. I'm not saying it's just because I work on it the most doesn't mean it breaks more often, not at all. it's just a very good, popular brand to get started with. That's the reason why. So it's very difficult to beat Slash or Rustler or Bandit as a starting RC. Alright, so I'm trying to go down to where this used to be. I can actually remove this and just tighten this now. Alright, I'm going to measure real quick. That looks about right. Alright, so now that that is there, so this will go here, like this, and now we have the other nut. So this here, this one you're going to face up because this is going to ride on it. And now we're just going to spin this one in. And I keep dropping it. I'm going to drop this in here. Now, when I took this apart, this was riding on it, so I'm just going to drive it up toward it. And that is it. So it'll be like this. This is the way, when I removed it, that's the way it looked. This was riding on top of it. So at this point, I can go ahead and drop this in. I'm going to screw, actually I won't screw that in. First I'm going to deal with these. I'm going to attach one of the sides. It does not matter if you do the right or left side. I'm doing the right side. And then after that, I'll just do the right side, and then I will attach the servo horn. So in the first video, I think it was the first video, where I discovered that his servo was not broken, that this had come off the servo horn, I did send him a message to let him know. So we're not going to be replacing the servo. That's why in a video, I just explained the steps for removing the servo without actually removing the servo. Well, I did not remove the servo. But here we go. And again, to remove the servo, the only thing you have to do is just remove these battery boxes. And then you just remove 8 screws, which are 2 on each side for this brace here and this brace here. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and then these on this other side. And then once you do that, you can just slide that out, and then you'll have access to the servo. All right, good. So that is there. This will just seat in here, and I will attach this here. And one thing to remember is the longest screw is going to go through this here. It's going to go right in through there. So that's something to keep in mind. Right now I'm going to check these pins. Well, I can always start them over here and then just push them forward with the plate. Not a big deal. And it would be this one. Well, this is the front one, so let's do the front one first. Well, this one should be last. But that will give me an idea. I'll just do that one. Let's see, 2, nope, 2.5. And here we go. So we have the first countersunk screw. So these pins are going to be held by this front plate. I'm not going to install it all the way. Well, no, it's just going to be there. And then once I put this other plate, this one goes underneath, then I'll worry about it. But the main thing is to line this up with this, and there's a long screw, so I have the screws over here. This one the one that goes through. And why is it going through? Well, this one's the one that locks everything in place. So it is a 2mm driver. Here we go. So this is the one that's going to lock all of this in place. So as you're installing this, I'm just going to hold it, sense this in, and I'm actually looking through these holes. You can actually see through the holes and just making sure the bottom key's in where it's supposed to. Hold it here, and I'm going to start tightening. And this is sliding in, so those parts here, before I tighten it fully, now you can't really see, not enough light, but in there, it's just keying in place. It's just going in there. As I tighten it, it's just moving it. You know, this nut is too far up. So I'm beginning to think that may have been, let's see. Let's just drop this in place. And right now I'm trying to line up these pins for the arms. Let me loosen this one up just a bit. Oh, nope, that's not it. Oh, that's what it was. It was the. So as I was trying to push this forward, the servo was staying in place. So it was moving the links this way, and it was throwing everything off. So I just had to adjust the servo slightly. Let me see if I can kind of peek in here without sticking my head inside of the camera or under the camera. And it doesn't look like I can, so that's the reason why this is becoming somewhat of a challenge, because that's all I need to do. I just need to drive those in. Alright, let's see, what if I had light? It looks, I think it looks better on the camera too. Sometimes the light doesn't help with this camera. Let's see if I flip this over. Yeah, this is a challenge, I'll tell you that. All right, before I do that, let me just check something. Interesting. All right, so I have a feeling there are two things I have to do. One is this. So I did, like I said, this is the way I removed this here, but this nut here, I have a feeling it should go lower. I will be driving this down. So it's that top red nut, I'm just driving it down to hold the other one in place. Now, then I'll check it later. All right, perfect. All right, that's holding that there. All right, so the two nuts are now together instead of being apart. Step one. Step two, I'm checking the two holes here. All right, so the orifice, they seem to be clean. And here we go in again. Trying to see if, oh, maybe. Let's see if this works. I'm actually going to remove this, install this one first, and then install this one just in case it's pushing the pins, moving the pins. Doesn't seem to be making a difference. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the following. I'm going to push the pins until they're just flush with the arms. And I'm going to come up top and I'm just going to drop this down. And then I'm going to push the pins forward. So if I do this, drop this down, just like this, I'm going to install this screw. So I'm going to do the entire installation. This was a bad idea because that goes in first. So I'll just leave it there for now just to hold it. Should have done these. Here we go. So we'll do this one here. And this one goes on this side. And then this one went here. We actually drive this one in part of the way. And then we'll drive the other one. So I'll do this first and then deal with that. So I'll tell you shortly what the idea is again. All right, here we go. Way down there. So I'm sticking my finger here to hold up the steering just enough to where I can mate it to this plate. I don't know if that was working or not. Let's see. Is that working? Yes. No, it wasn't. Yeah, this thing doesn't like me, does it? Alright, well, let's do this. Let's loosen this guy up. And I just dropped it, but it's alright. Let's see. Alright, so let's try this again. And go in here, hold this right there, and drive it in. So I'm holding the two pieces together with my hand, I'm just clamping them together. Alright, good, so that one's mated. I'll tighten it later. Let's work on this one now. Let's loosen this one up. So it'll give me some space to play with this other one. Actually, that other one's fine. And so now I just have to deal with this bottom one. So I'm just using my fingers here to line the little portion. So that one's lined up, that's good, good, good. Now I have to do this one. So let's see. Good. Perfect. And again, do not over tighten this. If you over tighten, you will damage the plastic. There we go. And right, so we have all 4. Now we're going to go for the center one. All right, good. And again, one of the things, notice the nuts. The nuts are together. That's so that this bottom one, which is on top right now on the camera, keeps the other one from backing out. So if you're going to adjust these, you're going to have to go in here, loosen the bottom nut, and then loosen the other one, and then lock them in place again once you're at the desired setting. All right, so here, perfect. See, that works. That's what I wanted. So there we go. Okay, so now they slid in, so now they are there. I should have installed this back plate first, but whatever. Makes it easier for me to stick my hand in there. That being said, now I can go ahead and install the other plates. And before I do that, I need to remove this screw, because I'm almost finished with this whole thing. Do not have a screw this size, but this one, I'll let my friend know to replace it at some point. I mean, I'm going to let him know as soon as I give him the truck back, but at some point he should replace it. All right, there we go. And there's that plate. Now, once you have this part installed, if you remember from a previous video, we did not install that bottom screw. Now you can install the bottom screw because that's where it goes. It screws on to this. And one screw was already missing, and it's actually the other side, because the other side I noticed it was a little broken, that plate, but let's see. So you can go ahead and install these bottom ones. And that is it. Now over here we have the other plate. Now this plate, this is where he was missing a few screws. I'm pretty sure there's screws that go in here, but I didn't see them. So I'm going to have to let him know. If I have some, I will replace them. I'll just put some screws in there. They appear to be just regular 3mm countersunk screws, so I'm going to see if they are. But this is just going to slide in, and it will go in here. So really quick, if you have one of these vehicles and then your steering doesn't work, so you hear maybe a servo, to be honest, we did not put a battery on here, so I didn't even check to see if the servo would turn or not. But these, see, now they're working. These were loose when I got the truck. But a little recommendation, just look inside of these gaps. Just look in here and see if this is attached, if the steering arm, this link, is attached to the servo horn. That'll save you some time. Now for me, this worked out because I was able to, tear some things down, do a little bit of maintenance, which I'm still not finished, but I'm going to finish my maintenance off camera. There we go. And let me just grab some countersunk screws for that little section. Let's see, I have some of these. They may be a little too long, but it won't matter here. Let's see, can it go through there? Yes. Yep, yeah, they're just 3mm screws, it appears. Maybe it's not going in. Let's see if it goes in. Not sure if I'm just spinning it or if it's actually, oh, no, it's tightening. Well, something's happening. Oh, yeah. There we go. All right, so it's just 3mm screws. So I placed one in there for him, and then I'll place another one in here. So I think somebody had done work to this, removed these before. unless they straightened out the chassis before or replaced the chassis, that could have been it. And feels like it's going in. Let's see. Yeah, it's almost there. So, all right, that one's in there. So we are good to go there. That's there. That's there. That's the screw that is missing, but I don't have anything that size. This plate is set. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give them some screws for this as well. Let's see if I can use the same size. And these are going to go into aluminum. Let's see, here we go. So into some aluminum. So he'll just get a few new screws. Boom, 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 boom. All right. There it is. And at this point, just checking everything. Just need to do the shocks, and I believe that is all I have to do, other than the wheels. So let's go ahead and do the front shocks. Now for this, I'm going to go ahead and just put a tire down here. That way the suspension is not in compression. So I can remove these screws easily and slide the shocks in. Now, on the shock, just remember, here, let me just clear my throat, I apologize. The wide flat end goes toward the bottom. It's the only thing to remember. Although, to be honest, I don't think it, performance-wise, if you're bashing or anything, you would notice the difference. But that's the way it was. That's the way I'm installing it. So that goes in there. Stick the screw in here, and then I'm just going to wiggle that shock in there until I can get the screw through. There. And once that's there, start driving this in. And again, if you use power tools, you can use power tools. Just be careful never to over tighten. And if you're removing screws, do not back them out too fast. You will damage everything. So that is set. So this one works flawlessly. Now we have the left one. Right, this is the front of the vehicle, so that's the left. This is the right. Just taking my driver stick and that little drum, lining it up, and then sliding it in. That is all I'm doing. There we go. All right, perfect. So at this point, all I have to do is mount up the wheels and tires. I'm just going to do this side. Once you do this side, it'll be the same thing. And the reason why is I do want to check the joints on the other side. So I'm going to use, let's see, which one should I use? I can use this one. I'm just going to do a rotation. So you're going to mount the wheel on, and then you're going to grab one of the nuts, and these do have some, they are serrated, which is what you want. And then I'm going to just drop it in here. And remember, it's a 17 millimeter nut, so you can just use a socket. And I'm actually turning the tire, and that is fine. Do not over tighten. It may have seemed like I was applying a lot of pressure, but in reality it's just my hand compressing the tire. These, I believe, need bigger holes to breathe. But that's how you would mount the tires. At this point, I'm just going to make some notes. The front and the rear ends, they're going to be the same. Just some things look slightly different, but it will be the same. So the next video, actually, I'm probably not going to make another video. There's no point. So let me just explain it here. It's the same idea. It was those 3 screws, these 3 screws here, plus this one. Rotate this up, and then just remove this, and then this will just slide out. Make sure you remove the shaft. It's easier if you remove this than remove the shaft. If not, it's going to come apart, but it's fine. But it's a lot easier once you assemble to take this plate off. So remove this plate, 1, 2, 3, and the screws over here. This will slide out. Remove these skid plates. Remove the bumper just like the front. So if you saw the front video, it's just those screws, and you're going to have another screw here in the middle. These are actually interchangeable. And then once you remove that, remove the pins for the arms. Arms will come out, and then the case will just open up. You'll have the differential in there. Remove the 3 top screws. That will pop open. Just be careful when you're removing that. Make sure you disconnect this wire here that goes to the servo that locks your differential. Let's see, other than locking than that, when you're removing the case, make sure you take some slack from the wire just so you don't tear the wire. And that's pretty much it. So once you've disassembled the front, the rear is the same process. So that's something that I will be doing off camera. Other than that, this will conclude the teardown series and explanations for the Arrma Nero. And again, these are the same as the fronts. The difference is you have 3 instead of 2, right? 1, 2, but it's the same thing. Use a 6 millimeter. This will back out. This one's actually loose. This will back out, and then you use a 3 millimeter to remove that bull nut. Make sure you don't lose these little spacers in there. They just clip on. Do not over tighten. As soon as this is snug and won't fall out, that's where you want to go. You can also remove them to change. You can change your camber. You can also change your toe. So you could remove this one to give it a little more toe. But it's up to you. You don't even have to use these. You can use metal washers instead, because these do compress. So metal washers would be a better choice, I think. You just get 1 millimeter spacers, washers, place them in there. But that is it. Clean the bearings inside the cams if you need to. These little cams here. Just clean all the bearings. And other than that, apply grease into these shafts. So this boot is kind of loose, so this one will surely need some lubrication. But other than that, as I mentioned, I'm going to do this off camera. I did it to the front. Same process for the rear. Alright, so here's the final product. This is the Arrma Nero, Nero, so everything is complete. Buttoned up a few things, added a few screws that were missing, but it looks nice. I mean, cleaning just takes a long time. There's a lot of stuff that you have to take apart. But these are, so I went, removed shafts, added grease, removed the little ball studs, clean them up, added grease to them. So front and rear is good to go. The only thing I would recommend is that you allocate good amount of time if you're going to do a complete teardown, because you're tearing it down and you're building it back up. But other than that, this is it. Thank you so much for watching.